One Last Time, Guided Close Read. Gary Soto is an award-winning writer of poetry, short stories, novels, and plays who bases much of his writing on his own life experiences. Although his stories often include Mexican-American characters, Soto believes that young people from any background can recognize the experiences and feelings he writes about. Authors use imagery to help readers imagine the things they are describing. Imagery is the use of descriptive words and phrases that appeal to the senses of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Reread lines 2 through 7, focusing on the description of the workers. To what sense or senses does the description appeal? Pause while you think. Sight, dusty and thin as sparrows, squinting, eyes small and veined. What impact does the description have on the tone or feeling of the text? Pause while you think. The description creates a sharp contrast between the comfortable movie audience and the exhausted workers. It suggests a feeling of hopelessness. Soto develops the key concept that his grandmother was a hard worker. Pay attention to his description of his grandmother as a worker. Examine how each sentence in the description contributes to developing this key concept. Reread lines 11 through 18. Soto is building the key concept that his grandmother is a hard worker. How do the sentences in lines 11 through 18 build on that idea? Pause while you think. Each sentence tells more about the intense physical work she did throughout her life. Authors expect readers to draw their own conclusions about ideas that are not stated in a text. A conclusion is a statement of belief or a logical judgment based on evidence, personal knowledge, and reasoning. Reread lines 63 through 79. What evidence in the text suggests how Soto and his mother are feeling? Pause while you think. They are both exhausted. Evidence. Sat down with a grunt. Unwrap a sandwich without looking at it. Chewed slowly. Eating in silence, I looked straight ahead. What conclusion can you draw about the work they are doing? The work is tedious and difficult. They are so tired and bored by the work that they can't even chat. A metaphor is a comparison of two things without the use of the word like or as. Authors often compare something unfamiliar to something familiar in order to help readers relate to what is being described. Reread lines 97 through 108. What metaphor does Soto use to explain how he feels as he begins the second half of his workday? Pause while you think. Boredom was a terror almost as awful as the work itself. What is the impact of his metaphor on the tone or feeling of the text? The metaphor suggests a feeling of desperation. He is resigned to surviving the experience, but no longer sees any hope in it. Remember that when you draw conclusions, you rely on evidence stated in the text. Reread lines 120 through 132. Find evidence of how Soto's first day of work has affected him. Pause while you think. Walked slowly to our car. Little joy in trying to avoid their tags because I could get the fields out of my mind. When I closed my eyes, I saw the fields. What conclusion can you draw based on that evidence? Soto is haunted by the idea of a lifetime of working in the fields. Authors choose words carefully to help readers imagine what an experience is like. In addition to imagery, an author may use similes, comparisons of two things using the word like or as. Reread lines 133 through 135. Identify Soto's use of imagery and simile. Pause while you think. Imagery. Grapes rained into the pan. Simile. Slowly filling like a belly. What is the impact of these word choices? Pause while you think. Grapes raining into the pan shows how hard he is working, but it also contrasts the dry, dusty fields with the idea of soothing rain. Filling like a belly implies that Soto is working to feed himself. The word choices suggest that Soto has resigned himself to the need to work. Remember that conclusions need to be based on evidence provided in the text. Reread lines 153 through 162. Find evidence of the expectations for the children in Soto's family. Pause while you think. Along with my brother and sister, I picked grapes until I was 15 before giving up and saying I'd rather wear old clothes. There would be no new clothes for me in the fall. Mother bought me 2 pairs of socks, a packet of colored t-shirts, and underwear. What conclusion can you draw about what Soto's mother provided for the children? Pause while you think. Soto's mother provided the necessities, but the children were expected to work for extras. Let's look at the imagery and the details the author uses to convey the experience of working in the fields. Remember that imagery appeals to one or more of the 5 senses. Reread lines 217 through 224. Identify descriptive words and phrases the author uses to describe what he can see. Imagery that appeals to the sense of sight. Pause while you think. You may notice that the following word choices all appeal to the sense of sight. Sun like a broken orange coin. Something not of this world. Taut line jutted with an occasional mountain. Snapshot of the moon. How does Soto's description impact the tone or feeling in the text? Soto is recognizing the beauty in an otherwise dismal place. This provides a more hopeful feeling and suggests that he may be becoming more positive about his life. Remember that conclusions come from analyzing the evidence. Reread lines 256 through 266. What conclusion can you draw from the evidence in the text about problems Soto had at home? Pause while you think. Soto says that he had a difficult stepfather and was told that I would never do anything, be anyone. He refers to the way I was treated at home. Readers can conclude that he had a bad relationship with his stepfather and received little love from him. Authors often use comparisons such as similes, along with imagery, to convey a visual impression. Reread lines 279 through 291. Identify similes and imagery Soto uses. Pause while you think. Similes, thin as their shadows, glanced off the field like a mirror, walked as if I were wearing snowshoes. Imagery. Eyes were meshed red. Long hippie hair was flecked with dust and gnats and bits of leaves. How does Soto's description impact the tone? The description creates a feeling of powerlessness, as if the brothers had gone up against a force of nature and lost. Authors use imagery and descriptive details to create a feeling or tone in the text. Reread lines 311 through 322. Identify imagery used to describe Soto's trip home. Pause while you think. Like a soldier coming home from war, necks following us, owl-like, cadaverous faces. Music blared, cue balls cracked like dull ice. How do those details affect the tone of the text? The tone becomes almost celebratory, suggesting a parade-like atmosphere honoring the workers for surviving.